Welcome, everybody. Louise, we planned this podcast, and I didn't remember that Europe had their time difference. So we're beginning an hour early, and Louise isn't here. So I'm going to ask questions today. And today we have a guest, which is so awesome. We're so excited. We have Abdi Assadi here, who is a friend and my teacher, and just an incredible, awesome spiritual dude.
Mm, so
What are you?
cool.
Are
You
you
little liar. I'm a dude. I'm a dudist.
a dude? Dude. Okay, we're gonna see if we can get through this without like being too slap happy because it is 6 a.m.
It
and
is 6 a.m.
we haven't seen each other in a while and we're gonna be silly.
Mm,
So welcome, Abdi.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. So do you want to like just say a little bit like who are you? I know that's sort of
I'm an
boring, but
acupuncturist. I mean, professionally, what am I? I'm an acupuncturist and a spiritual counselor. Um, I've trained in acupuncture. I've been a practitioner 40 years now. I've trained with shamanic, both indigenous as well as different shamanic schools. I've trained in psychotherapy a lot, Jungian analysis. So yeah, I'm sort of doing a mishmash of things to get people back into themselves.
you don't do acupuncture right
I started
now,
doing
right?
acupuncture, yeah, about 6 months before COVID, Grace. I stopped
Yeah,
my acupuncture practice and moved upstate full time, and I do phone sessions. So I sort of do what I
yeah.
did always, which is basically talk to people, speak with people. So I've been doing that now. That's my work. But the work has always been to get people back to their center.
Yeah. But do you feel like is there a difference in your practice now that you have sort of you're not like physically next to people with the needles, like you're
Yeah,
just doing
it's actually more
spiritual?
powerful because I was trained by a lot of different shamans to use mind. I mean, all these healing practices is mind affecting mind. So I've had a good 4 decades and, thousands and thousands of people. So I can
Yeah,
get
so you
into people's energies through the phone. And in many ways, it's actually more pointed where I can actually move more in a session. It's interesting how I don't even need the body or the body's not necessary. Although I find body really important, as I always tell people,
yeah.
yoga practice, martial arts practice, acupuncture, massage.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
have to.
poo-pooing that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
for me personally, I can actually move a lot. My interest is really getting people to their center. That's always my interest. I'll go to my deathbed, that being my interest. I find that's really the core, is getting people in
To
touch
my deathbed.
to my deathbed. Get that
Yeah,
quote in
because
out
it's
there.
interesting because it's like we've talked about this on this podcast too. It's like
Mm.
I always feel like words, I mean, but you do more than just words. Like you have your energy is
Mhm.
shifting the person that you're speaking to on the
Correct.
phone, and then you do distal healing
Yes.
after, so it's not just therapy, right?
No.
But I always feel like the body element, if it's not there, then if you don't include that in
Yes.
your path or
Yes.
you're moving forward, then you can't really shift.
Well, we can dive into it right there. I mean, the body is really crucial. It really centers it. I mean, the mind is the problem, right? The mind jumping all over the place is the problem.
Yes.
So, as me and you have talked about ad nauseum, so the body is a wonderful place to ground that energy and that awareness. So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's the little thing like when you say, feel your feet.
yes. The feeling the feet is just to pull people, everyone talks, we all talk about the moment. We live in a hyper individualized culture. So the thing me and you were talking about before, for example, with your daughter being on Instagram, but it's not just teenagers, it's like everyone now. So the
Yeah.
attention is going to 9 million directions right now, right? So the body is a wonderful way. And the feet part is because literally, from an energetic perspective, from a Chinese medicine, let's say a martial arts practice,
Hmm.
but the same with
Hmm.
yogic, where your awareness is where the energy flows. So the heady part isn't just that we're not in the moment, but also we're pulling the energy out into the head. So the body really starves. So just like right now, I would invite people who are listening to us or watching this to literally just be aware of where their awareness is. And it sounds kind of funny. Where's my awareness? Oh, it's here. We'll look up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, bring it down.
Yeah.
Right? Soften the belly, pull the energy down, and
Hmm.
come into the feet. That's one of the things I do all the time. So part of my work when I do phone sessions, I work on people the night before. I sit with my list,
Mhm.
one by one, I go through them and I feel
Mhm.
my body by starting the sessions. I do the same things today. For example, I'll be working. Before
Mhm.
our session, I was doing this. I go through the names and I sit in my body with the person and I get in
Mhm.
my body the information I need for them. This
Mhm.
person is going through this, or this person needs to be reminded of this. It comes, there's no I doing it. The I
No,
gets out of the way by being in the body, and then the information comes in. And of
the
course,
messages.
yeah, and there's a permission, right? So when people make an appointment, I have permission. I always ask people, I have permission. There's a permission. You don't just go voyeur, because you can do that. You can voyeur once you psychically open up. You don't do that. That's not kosher.
No, because
That's a
that's
Yeah, it's a no-no.
boundaries.
It's a boundaries,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So the feeling the feet thing is a really big thing. You know,
yeah.
me and you have talked about it, especially for me and you as people who use substances to deal with our pain when we're
Mhm.
younger. It's very easy to abdicate the body. We just go up and out. And this culture, everything is up and out. And, we're so focused, especially with these mediums that we use, people are not present. So
Yeah,
I
but
write,
the connection of the body
it's
is
everything.
like,
Yeah, well, the body's 2 million
yeah,
years old. This thing is 200 years old, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
I always say this. It's the body. There's a lot of wisdom there, but
so much.
so much. But we use, in this culture, because of its hyper individualization, the body has become a commodity. Like everything's become a commodity. So it's not a thing that we have a relationship with. It's something we do things to. We dress it, we wash it, we make it fit. Make it look a certain way. There's those cultural norms, right? It's like there's
No,
no
but
relationship.
yeah, I mean, it's the objectifying of the body, right?
Yes, yes, that's what I mean by
But
commodity. Yes,
yeah,
correct.
so I mean, I think about this a lot because I still, even though I've been sober for 25 years, I still at points treat my body like a dumpster.
Sure, sure. I mean, that's a part of how this culture works, right? I mean, and
Yeah,
remember, the joy and the pain of this time is this individualization, but a part of it is
yeah,
there's no relationship. The I has become so separate from
yeah,
this container, right?
yeah.
And
The
the more
larger I,
the
the
larger I,
soul I.
the
Yeah,
soul I has really so all the stuff with the metaverse now, like people are really being herded into even less connection with it. Go into the
yeah,
metaverse and put these goggles on and just get out, out, out. Part of what
yeah,
happens with that, besides being total um, frenemies with our bodies, we have no relationship with it, right?
yeah,
And the less relationship and the people that kind of herd people and come up with these technologies, they're even more disconnected. There is no
yeah.
sense of the body mind. Mm. But
You
it's a
know, and
wonderful
it's
time for
like,
practice.
what?
It's a wonderful time for practice. I mean,
Yeah,
it's graduate school.
yeah.
This
So, I mean,
incarnation is
the
graduate
things that
school.
we've talked about on here, I mean, Louise went, and because you've listened to some of the stuff,
Yeah,
but, it's like feeling the feet,
yeah.
and things like I always talk about like the breathing through the nose. I do the combo of
It's
those,
wonderful.
like, so I breathe through my nose,
Hmm.
feel the air coming in and out of my
Hmm.
nostrils, the feet on the ground,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like a balance, like a boomerang balancing thing, like nose, feet, nose,
Beautiful,
feet.
beautiful.
And, but it took me a really long time, even though I've been meditating forever, to actually not just be sort of
Yes.
from the chest up.
Well, remember, there's a lot of the body has memories, right? So this thing has a lot of memories. So part of the difficulty with that is, as we drop in, it has to be gradual because we get overwhelmed with the wounds and the pain that comes up with it, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of pain. And this is one of the things in the awakening process. And I love the name of your podcast. Awakening is a process. It's not an event. The event,
Exactly.
the event is an
Yeah.
invitation. Some people, like I had
Yeah.
it, you had it, we have these Kundalini experiences where people have these moments when they, with their horse or
Like
their
it's a
power.
beautiful Shakti pot and
Exactly.
forever their life
Exactly.
has changed. That
Yes.
didn't happen to me.
Well, it doesn't. So it happens to, yeah, it happens to Ramana Maharshi. The rest of us suckers
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
kind of
The rest.
slog through it, right? And this is another thing that's, we're also highly psychological beings. A lot of the information that's passed down from these cultures, whether it's India, Japan, India, Tibet, people weren't so hyper individualized. So the psychology part, as Westerners, which I really consider the world now, it's very important to deal with the psychology of it. So there's
Mhm.
a whole part which is spirituality, which is the invitation. In my own experience, but I've worked with people for 40 years. I mean, thousands and thousands of people. the psychology part is also very important, which when you sit and you do the breathing and you feel your feet and this
Mhm.
emotion comes up, sometimes it just releases.
You mean, so when you say the psychology part, you mean
Woundings, psychological woundings,
yeah, like
neuroses.
dealing with that, like not
Yes,
doing the spiritual bypass, which you talk about in your
yes,
book.
yes.
Like if you don't deal with, because we actually last few episodes ago we talked about like I wrote a blog called Healing Subconscious
Which
Patterns.
is wonderful.
And thank you. And like it's about basically like all the different things on the palette. And we already
Correct.
talked about this with the body and
Yes.
the, you know, the psychology part.
Yeah.
And I think for me now, I can do I can meditate through the psychology.
Beautiful.
But 20 years ago,
Yes.
I'd have to talk to a therapist or a
Yes.
sponsor or something to sort of, but now I can objectify like a pattern
Right.
comes up,
You
and
name it.
I name it, and since I have awareness on, you
Yes.
know, I everything has distance between me and the
Yes.
pattern itself,
Yes.
it can dissolve.
Yeah.
It comes up, it has a life and dissolves. So,
Beautiful. But the
but
therapy part is actually important. So that's the part of 20 years. And that's the part, especially,
I
I mean,
had to do that.
you had to do that. It's changed a lot. I mean, back in the
Yeah.
day, let's say 40 years ago, the psychology part was like, well, if you're doing spiritual work, you don't need that. And I can also say people can do therapy for 40 years and not get the work. You actually need the work, both combined. But the psychology part, one thing I would say, given that you deal with in this podcast about awakening, the psychology has to also be married to the spirituality. I very
Mhm.
rarely see people who have healthy enough childhoods that that stuff isn't there. I mean, a lot of people, most that I come across, I would say, who really gone on a spiritual path was a push against psychological wounding, psychological
Yeah.
pain. That's the invitation, right? It's like me and you doing drugs. It wasn't because things were great. It was like, oh, I don't want to feel this. Let me just alter
Oh
my
God,
psychology,
you
right?
know. But it was the solution temporarily from the
Absolutely, yeah.
pain.
No,
Yeah.
so there's no judgment, right? It's all
No.
understanding. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a temporary solution, right? It really is. It's not. I never
Mm.
judge that stuff because I know, and I cut my teeth working in clinics in South Bronx and Lower East Side, working with addicts. It's always pain. It's nothing
So
but
much pain.
compassion for that. It's so much pain. So the pain has to be addressed. One of the dangers on the path is we can go to spirituality, and I've seen this a gazillion times, and I did it myself.
Gazillion.
Gazillion.
The spirit.
Well, because we go into the spirituality as a way of another band-aid for the pain. So, right, so the cocaine gets replaced with a drug or a
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just worse to the wiser. The
No, I
psychology
mean,
part
you
is
know, I've
important.
like it's like when you go to an ashram, which I've been to a couple of times with my kids, because we did like these yoga camps at the Shivananda ashram in upstate New York.
Mm,
And you know, some of the times there's people that like live there, but you know, they're bonkers
yes, yes. Well,
because
we're
they're just
householders, so this is another thing that's really important, right? A lot of these spiritual paths were for monastic life. What's also
mm,
interesting in this life is to balance being a householder, which was a dirty name, like we're in India, householder.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a monk.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, the game ups a lot to be a householder. And then for you, for example, with your daughters, that becomes your practice. And with your
yeah,
husband, that's your
yeah,
practice. And with your horse,
yeah.
that's your practice. Like the practice is in the
The
world.
life.
Life.
And that's, I mean, that's what Awakening 101 as a concept is about.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
how do we live life, have the bumps that we have with,
Right.
you know, disease and COVID or whatever you want to say,
Right.
and then find opportunities
Right.
within that and to move
Oh,
through
life
and
gives them to
go to
you. Life, those
life.
opportunities just
Life gave me a
life.
lot of them, Abdi.
How shocking for all of us. I mean,
No.
that's the work, and it comes every day. It's all grist for the mill, right?
Yeah. It never ends.
It never ends. I was sitting with it this morning. I was sitting before our session, 4 in the
Yeah.
morning, and I was really sitting with that piece of, it really, as you get older and as you get deeper into the practice, the identification with the problems becomes less. So it processes quicker. So that's the gift of it too.
Yeah. That's so good.
So you,
That's, yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but you still, the work is still, but it gets quicker and quicker, and there's less and less identification because, as you know, with the path, it becomes narrower and narrower till it becomes a razor's edge where behaviors just can't be done. And old wounds come up and old behaviors that were, for example, for us, for me and you as addicts, you know, we might say something or be harsh or whatever, and you catch it quicker. So there's a level of compassion towards self, and there's a level where the self is really kept to the fire, or like this can happen. And then it does get lonely, because a lot of behavior is not behavior's fault, also people's
We're
fault.
so lonely.
Well, I always say that it's not lonely. It's funny, you're joking,
No.
and I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It is, but it isn't, because the alone is all one.
Of course.
The
Yeah.
loneliness is a part of it. I mean, it really becomes that. But then you're so juiced up by your own presence, which is the divine's presence through you, that becomes the ultimate relationship, and you
Yeah. I
can't
mean,
afford that for anything.
yeah. Like it's like people ask me that, like, do you miss? I mean, I could say that if I go to Sweden, which I'm doing tomorrow, I'm going to Sweden, and are you going to miss your husband? And I'm like, yeah,
Well, it's
no,
different. It's different
because it's like he's part of my field somehow.
Yeah, and also you're really present in the moment. So that missing thing is very interesting. I find the missing thing because people aren't present. If you're sucking the marrow the whole time, and it's not always like, oh, this is wonderful, sucking the marrow. Sometimes with your spouse is like, I want to take a shovel and bury you in the yard. Yes, but that passes quickly, and then you go into the next level of like, oh yeah, this is my partner. This is what and whatever that is. It can be your child, it can be your pet. That when you're sucking the marrow out of it by super being present, not being somewhere else all the time, which is most of us, then that also helps not the missing, because you're in the moment with it. It's a process. And then
because I'm here right now, like
that's it.
yeah.
And then there's this thing too with awakening, which is love over fear. There's an invitation, which is what awakening is. Awakening, all it is an invitation, right? Whatever it
I
comes.
love that you said that. Like, so can you say more of what you mean by invitation?
So people have, let's say, traditional awakening process, like Kundalini experience or a moment of oneness in the field or whatever. It's very interesting. I see this now with the advent of people doing hallucinogens, MDMA and ayahuasca and psilocybin, right? They can be very, very helpful. It's very similar to the spiritual practice in that it can be a tricky thing where we feel like I am Atma, as opposed to Atman is I. The I am piece, right? That's a big part of it. So the invitation, part of what happens with the invitation, people don't really read the invitation. I am God. They're like, well, not really, brother. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. God is I is a very different experience. So that invitation, the first part of it, there's a lot of work to go. So a very common thing for actually most people is to actually get stuck in that for a while, or 10 years, where the ego even gets more fortified. The ego doesn't understand that its head is on a chopping block. It doesn't understand that there's no I. The I piece, I am. If you stop there, we're good. I am this. Whoa, back it up. So the invitation is, it takes time after that, and the ego doesn't want to hear that. Our egos want it to be immediate and quick, and it's like when you realize the work that you're going like, holy shit, how far does
The
this
path
go?
is
It's like,
long. I can't do it. I am God.
yeah. What's very interesting, so the spiritual things do that, but I also really see that it's a very common thing. I had Kundalini experiences back in the day, which are very profound and they're fun when you look back, but there's a reason why the masters say, don't get lost in those journeys. You get the psychic thing, you see the oneness, you see past lives, future lives. It's really fun. But there's a reason they say they don't do that, because that's a high. The ego gets a hold of that. And I see that a lot. So I was a go-to guy for this Kundalini stuff for a while in the city when people found that. Yeah, it was. It was like, it was a couple of hundred people over 40 years that came. And it was amazing how all of us had the same experience. We had this experience. It was amazing. Oh, I am. Like, whoa, you got to chill with that I am stuff. And there's no you that's got to chill. Just chill with the I am stuff. Then you drop into the real work. And the real work can look boring till you actually get the joy of like, oh,
It's totally. I mean, it's because I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm going to come back to the I am that thing because I was thinking about something. But yesterday I was at home and I was working on something, and that's all I did all day. And I was like, and I was so in the moment the whole day that I was like, I'm kind of bored, But then I realized that it's just because I'm like just working on this thing and I want to get it done. So I'm just going to do that. And I don't think about other things while I'm working. I'm just thinking about the thing that but it just gets so, the presence that you can, when you are in it, you can feel the complete grounding, because it's almost like, how do I describe? It's like
as well.
it's
Well,
out there, you
as
know,
well.
it's
Yes.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's just right here, right now
Yes.
becomes a visceral experience.
Yes. It's the habit
Uh,
that the boredom is a habit. So
yeah.
right, it's just more and more relationship with the moment. And these words always fail, but it's more and more relationship with the moment. And when the boredom comes, it's just habit. And sometimes there's psychological woundings that have to be tended to. Sometimes a little boy, little girl inside of us. Sometimes as simple as just sitting with that part, being like, what is it? What is it that you want? And that
Mhm.
excitement really comes, the drive for excitement comes when we're not in full relationship with the moment. Now,
Yeah.
these are really heady things, right? At the same time, you also have to make room for your humanity. And sometimes you just want to go out and rip on your horse, on your bike, or just walking outside your street or whatever it is, and you come back to it. It's not like this forceful thing. And there are times where you actually have to sit with that loneliness or that boredom and be like, what is this about?
Mm.
And the second you sit with these things, they just,
The sitting with stuff
yes.
is
Well, that's the work, right? The work is
that's
being
like
present.
PhD program.
Yes, it's being present with it. That's the work. The
Sitting
work,
down and just like because we were talking about this when we talked about the process of surrender. You know,
yes.
I mean, I've been talked to you about like David Hawkins,
Mm-hmm,
you know, the book,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Letting Go, Pathway to Surrender. And he talked, when I went through that process, the sitting down, I would literally physically go sit on a chair
Yes.
so that I could do what he told me, which is feel the feelings and let them have their life and then
Yes.
have them dissolve.
Yes.
And I would have to, like, if I was in a rage, which I was in rage all the time
Mm-hmm.
before,
Okay.
I'm sure you have no idea what it's like to be in a rage. But I would just, I would just go sit down and just
Mm-hmm.
sit. And then sometimes I would do these like angry letters. I'm like, F you, F you, F you, F you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like,
So
okay.
that's really important what you're saying. So there's three things that we do with emotions. Two that we do all the time. One that we don't do. One is to repress them. That's
Yeah.
that's sort of the American way. Just joking, but that's
American
that's like really
way.
all of us. The second is to act them out, which is
Yep.
when we say Karens or all those jokes we make about like people just having a meltdown. The one that we don't do, which is what you just described, is just to feel them. And in order to feel them, which is very uncomfortable, is to learn to tolerate them. And they shift when
Yeah.
you can do that. But we usually have to bounce between the first two for a while, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, till we actually get to a point where we can feel them. And then the tolerating them is what shifts them, right? And that
Yeah.
tolerating piece, that's where the body piece comes down.
Yeah.
And
Accepting that, I'm, because a lot of people, they, okay, let's, for example, they're angry,
yeah,
but then they get upset that they're angry.
yes. Well, because also those things, that's where the psychological intervention is really important, because you could be a child where you weren't allowed to be angry, which is a common
Yeah.
thing. Or you have this
Yeah.
perfectionist thing where you want to be uber controlling, which is a bulimia or anorexia of emotions, where you want to really
Yeah.
control everything. And these things always
Yeah.
add up and then just blow up. So these are part and parcel of what we're talking about. The invitation to awakening is all these things that moment, like I am God, you don't realize like, holy shit, there's decades of work ahead of you. But, but even that part, it's like there is no
Yeah.
option. There is no option. The only
Yeah.
option is to dig in. And spirit is very kind, right? She guides you. She holds your hand,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
Mother.
look like in the moment. It's like you're trying to put mud in your mouth, and your mom just takes the mud out of your hand and says, "No, don't eat the mud." Oh, I want a mud. He puts a carrot. But like that, you just have to make room for that. So we're just saying this laughingly, but we also know from me and you, it's been quite an arduous process. But there is
It's
no
a long
option.
process. And I always think about like, are people going to listen to this and be like, that sounds like way too much. I give up already.
Well, you don't listen to this because you listen to it. You're guided to listen to us because you actually are at a point where there's no option but to go
Yeah.
forward. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Also, there's
Yeah.
a beautiful synchronicity underneath it all, orchestrating it.
Yeah.
I mean, no person
Yeah.
in their right mind would listen to this. I'd rather go watch Netflix. But the person that listens to this is like, something's going on. There's something stirring. Or
Yeah.
I've been doing this
Yeah.
for so long. Can I pick something else up to ease my path? So we get guided to these things.
So, okay. So let's ask you, what is your sort of first moment that you can like remember
Mm.
where you might have thought like, okay, wait,
Mm.
when you were a kid or like
Mm.
early teens like me, like when you had, like you just said, like, you're guided to something, like
Mhm.
when was, I mean, I'm sure it was before you started doing drug.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you want to get out there. I was actually talking to someone about this recently. I remember being an infant, like below 2, and seeing lights, like being in my crib and seeing lights, and having this feeling of this very heavy entity that was size of a pea, like a pea, the legume.
Yeah, green pea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it took me like 45, 50 years to realize that that was actually a feeling of a black hole. That's what a black hole is.
Yeah.
Quantum physics of this tiny thing that has all the mass of all the planets, but it's tiny. And then these
Yeah.
feelings, I always had these feelings which always kind of showed me that there was something behind the curtain, that the reality,
Yeah.
and I would see lights. It used to scare the hell out of me. And I remember
Of
being a
course.
kid, my dad worked for UNICEF, so we lived around the world. I remember being a kid, maybe, I don't know, 11, 9, 10, 11, and being on the rooms of a temple. And that's
Hmm.
the first time I had this one pointed mind experience, just because whatever was in that sort of ruins was people had meditated probably from 800,000 years. So I remember me and my
Where was
brother,
the temple?
it was northern India. I don't remember now because my dad, again, used to travel around, but it was outside of Delhi. I think it was outside of Delhi. And just sitting on it. And in the mornings, there was a UN hostel where we would stay. And me and my brother would make our way there and we'd go to play there, but actually we wouldn't play. I would just sit and just have this experience. So that's the
Yeah.
first time I was like, again, no words, I had no understanding, but I knew it was special. So that
So
was like,
energy at the temple sort of brought you to
exactly, the
sit.
energy of the
sit.
temple. You know how it is when you go to temples. I've had this experience in Zen, or Ramesh Belshikar, Nisargadatta's student that I studied with in India. When you would go around these cats or these women or these places that there was a lot of deep oneness, the mind
Mhm.
actually synchronizes, like the
Yeah. Yeah.
holistic we're talking
Yeah.
about, right?
Yeah.
That was the experience. And then I had these sort of several Kundalini experiences in my
What age were you think?
I mean, I always forget these things, especially the older I get, but it was like 18, 19, and then 21, 22. They were really profound. And the
Hmm.
last one was really profound. And it scared me so much that I didn't sleep for like 6 months. I was actually scared to go to sleep because I thought I was going to die. These are words. It was way more intense. But, psychic ability, seeing past lives, seeing future lives, knowing oneness, like really
Hmm.
knowing. And the I got removed out of the place. And the classic thing that happens where you think you're enlightened. You're like, oh, this is great. And then I
Hmm.
was actually practicing too at the time. One time I was in my early 20s where I could put my finger on people's third eyes and the Shaktipat thing. It lasted only a couple of months. So it was just sort of like extraordinary experiences.
Yeah, the cities.
The
They had
cities, and
cities.
which again, this is what I'm saying, the danger of those things. That's why all the teachers say get rid of them, but they come up. And I remember to the point where I started hearing voices and I was like, okay,
Oh
motherfucker,
shit.
we stop now because I'm going to go to Bellevue and get like, literally walking down the street, hearing stuff, being like, be like, we stop now. But they did do
Leave me
something.
alone.
What, like, leave me alone because I'm going to go crazy. But the gift
Yeah.
of it was it showed the bigger part. But the curse of it, as the curse of it is, and I've seen this with hundreds of people, is you start thinking you're special and you don't realize that the
You're not.
psychological work is, boy, there it is. Here's a shovel, and man, this thing is granite. Good luck.
Yeah.
We'll see you in
Yeah.
a couple of decades. So
Yeah.
those things were profound in that they gave me a sense of like, oh, I didn't at the moment. I was too young to understand that there's a mountain of psychological work, and people like me and you have a. Oh, look who's here. Me and you have AD. Hey,
Hey,
I was just about to say the
hi.
secret of the universe and you interrupted. Wow, I forget now. How are you? Hey, Dole.
Hey, Do means goodbye.
I know, but I just said that because you keep going on. How are you? How's it going?
But fine. I've been so much looking forward to this, and I got in panic because when Pernilla wrote to me, I can hear the music when someone is calling in on my phone. I was like, "Who's keep on calling all the time?" Whenever and then he's like, "Where are you?" I was like, "Well, it's only 11 here. It's an hour."
I'm so sorry, Louise.
No, that's it's just the universe. It's like this. We forgot that we changed time here.
So we've been chatting, Louise. What have we been chatting about? I don't even remember now because it was
We're talking
then.
about awakening processes or what the process was for me. That's what you're asking. So I was telling you
Yeah.
about these little Kundalini things and how the trick is that you think you're freaking enlightened. And guess what? It's just an invitation. You got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Abdi was telling us about basically his 20s, that experiences that he was having, which actually are pretty far out, Abdi.
Oh, they
Because
were out there. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm old now, so I've forgotten it, but it was very magical. And I was already a clinician. I started being a clinician very young age, and I've talked about some of these things, but it was really wild. Like I would work with people, and I could do these Shaktipat things, and we would like, I mean, crazy stuff. I mean, one time I was doing biofeedback with this really sweet gentleman, 3-piece suit, like that kind of thing. And I'm like out there, it's all one. God is here. Vishnu is in the room, I was like, this guy's nuts. And I put my thumb on his third eye and gave him this like jolt of energy. And like we both disappeared. Like our consciousness was there, but our bodies disappeared. I know it sounds crazy. Then he got scared and the bodies reappeared. I caught whatever I was at that moment, caught what had happened. So I put my finger on his third eye again. And this time we relaxed longer. And it was amazing because I had his biofeedback equipment, EEG
so you
stuff.
could scan his brain.
Scanning his brain. And it was like the machine, I remember to this day, the machine kind of went like flat. Like we actually left the building and we went to the roof and we were together. So we had an awareness together. The eyes were softened. And then this time we slowly came back into the room. It was like a really profound experience. And I ran to this guy years later. I had this African wall hanging, and he asked me for a piece of it to remember the moment. I cut this little piece and gave it to him. And I remember years later running into him in in Washington Square Park. And I didn't recognize him. He had long hair, this and that. He was like, that experience was so crazy. I quit my job I was working at IBM or something. And I'm in this country, taking care of kids who are like orphaned. I was like, it was a wild experience. So this stuff was out there, right? And
But this guy, you write about him in your book.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the point being, like, these things are real and it was wonderful. I would never exchange it for anything, but they can also be tricky in that the magical is still of the realm. It's not like it's another realm. It's still earthly bound. It's like to see these and all these happen. There's a reason why the teachers warn us against it. I see this a lot with psychedelic experiences. People have these experiences on them, have these profound experiences, but that's just an invitation. That's an invitation saying, okay, maybe this is not fully what it is.
It's time to start.
It's
time to begin.
That gets very confused, especially in our culture that's so focused on these things. We want magic. We're fucking bored, man. It's like, how much food can we eat? How much drugs? How much sex? It's like, we want magic. It's like,
yeah. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. It's too boring.
We want out. But then the magic becomes what you were describing, Pernilla, where like, I'm sitting here, I'm bored, but then that gets deeper and deeper. So then everything becomes magical in a different quality. There's a difference between shooting cocaine and having a cup of tea. It's still a different experience.
No way.
It's hard to tell.
No way.
It's hard for you. I know it's hard to recognize that. But you know what I mean? That's sort of the analogy I give people. It's like this, right? Because you don't want to be here so bad that you got to get this far out of your body, or just having a cup of tea. And even that becomes too much. Like, well, let me just next time just have decaf, because the sensitivity becomes. So you're not trying to run away. The running away, no matter what it is, always creates more pain. Like anything you negate comes back and gives you ass whooping lovingly. At the end of the day, it's all light. It wants the best for you. It's mother, all of it. Even when it looks so horrific outside, right? That's the part of it that kind of comes in.
I mean, this is actually a good point where you said the running away, because Louise and I were talking about this. Remember, we talked about this last night, you and I, Abdi, but
yes,
this aspect of running, and now we're digressing, and then we'll come back to the main questions. But, all of us, I mean, less now, but we run through life. And Louise and I had a moment this summer, which we also talked about, Louise and I, when we were getting ready to go from one place to another, and we're putting stuff in the car, and we don't have to be there at a certain time, but Louise is moving really fast. And I go, and I do that too. I don't mean anything like that, and I said, Louise, move slowlier, right? And then it's kind of like an example of something where, but then again, I have people in my life, like my husband, who doesn't move fast at all. He's like the slowest guy on the planet. But this sort of running starts when? Like, is it just we are uncomfortable?
Well, yeah, it's anxiety, right? The fast movement is anxiety. I mean, it's really hard to appreciate how terrified we all are. So one of the things I was actually sitting with this morning before our session was one of the invitations with the awakening process is to go from survival to living.
Yeah.
You know, when I used to have my practice in the city, I used to treat really famous people, really wealthy people. It didn't make a difference. Everyone was running. This idea that once I have this amount of money, then I'll slow down. Nope. Once I have this level of prominence, then I'll slow down. Nope. It's very profound what you're saying. Part of the running thing is, see, part of my work has been working with death and dying. And one of the things that always broke my heart, holding people, whether they were young people with AIDS or people with cancer or old people who are dying natural deaths, they had never tasted life. They would actually verbalize that. They would pretty much say without saying what you just said, Pernilla, which is, I've been running my whole life. So that's a really painful thing at 89 on your deathbed to realize. So the part of the slowing down, which is also the culture, does everything not to allow it. Because remember, this culture has a consciousness, and the consciousness needs you to consume. And in order for you to consume, it needs you to be divorced from yourself. And in order to be divorced from yourself, it needs you to be running. There's the loop for you. So part of this anxiety tolerance, so you do yoga to do it, you do pranayama, you do martial arts, you might need medication for some time, is to actually learn to tolerate the anxiety. Once you tolerate it, you realize it's just a background noise. It's not you. But that part, remember, people literally wake up now. From the second they wake up, the phone is on, then the coffee goes in, and then it's nonstop. It's not just that we're all busy. We are. You know, I mean, I don't have children. You guys have children. I can't even imagine what that brings to the game. But I've been around enough people, and I used to deliver babies. And I've seen the process of what it does. But still, it's not just that. Because I have a lot of single friends, or I treat a lot of single people. They're doing the same thing as you two, getting the kids, getting up, breakfast in school and all that. The anxiety piece is literally the part of the ego mind that never wants to dissipate and soften. And the culture does a good job at it. And I always say, culture is not your friend. Meaning, we have all, through our unconscious, designed this thing to divorce ourselves from reality. And the game has gone as far as it can. We've become as hyper-individuated as we can become. The next step is going to be going to the hyperspace, which is, again, fine. That's what people want to play. But you're really going to lose touch with yourself. Part of sort of this craziness that's going on is people are so divorced from themselves that not that they're not in their body. Now they don't even want a body. They just want to go into hyperspace, totally devoid, actually even a physical body. That's what that next game piece. That's this whole transhumanism craziness. And if you don't have a grounding in here, there's such a terror of death that becomes even more magnified. So now they want to take their consciousness and put it into a machine because they don't want to die. It's like, dude, that's just all a game. Like, you're still in the dream. Like, the game is in the dream, have some level of awakening. And that's an invitation. It's all good. Everyone's waking up at the end. We've all set alarm clocks in our lives to wake us up. My experience was my soul's alarm clock for this dummy to be like, yeah, dude, I know you've done this 3,000 times. I'm going to give you this at this age, and give you another one at this age, and then another one because you're really sick. And then we'll get to the work, right? We set these alarm clocks. To your point.
Well, the universe sets the...
Well, yeah, the universe, you. When I say you, it's not I, the personality. It's I, the soul. The soul is the universe. These words get very tricky, and different cultures have different intonations for them and different explanations. But you were saying earlier, Pernilla, before you're on, Lisa, where, you know, who would listen to this? Well, the person who's going to listen to this is someone who's going to be guided to listen to this, because the soul has got this. Is like, go listen to this thing. It's not like, let me just kill an hour, listen to these fucking three knuckles.
Yeah,
it's
I got nothing else to do. Yeah, let's just listen to people
so,
talk about spirituality.
You know, the three of us sitting here is so beautiful. You're in Sweden, and you and me and you in the States, sitting here talking. Like, the magic of this technology, bringing three people.
I love it.
Same interest is beautiful. That is the beauty of, also has to be remembered in the midst of a nightmare that we're having collectively. Right now, with this war that's going on, another one on top of everyone else's painful things, there is a beauty in this, right? And the beauty is we do our work as a gift to Mother, however you want to describe that, but also as a gift to our brothers and sisters who are not having this experience, who've forgotten us. But at the end of the day, we don't have a choice. Like, three of us being here, you at 11 o'clock with your time change miss, us two at 6 a.m. We don't have a choice. It's like, here we are. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's like, there's something really beautiful in that. And that,
I mean, it's like, what else for me, and I think for Louise too, it's like, what else is there?
So that's the beautiful part, because you both have lived enough and have suffered enough to get to this place. That only comes through that, right? Very few people. I got to say, I've treated about 12,000 people in 40 years. I don't really see people who are like, life's great, let me go wake up. It's not like that. It's just like, there's some nagging thing inside, like something's up. Like, I don't know, man. There's got to be something else in this, right?
Life sucks. I gotta go do something. Yeah.
There's always that pain, but that pain is
Yeah.
an invitation. And then the thing I was saying to you earlier before you came on, Louise, where, you know, people are in survival mode. They're not living, regardless
No,
of
they're
what,
not living.
So true. So true.
This is the invitation that will go from survival to living, not when this zero comes in the bank account. Although I've had no money, it's nice to have a little bit of money. It's nice to have
yeah.
It's not to say it doesn't matter.
We think about that.
Yeah, but I know people have like 4 homes who don't have that feeling. So it's not just an external thing. That's a real thing. You can't poo-poo that stuff. So,
you know, I think about what you said about the survival. I think about this a lot, especially after COVID. That now we're all stuck in fight or flight. Before, it was just a little bit, but like I feel like it's sort of like a sped up our fight or flight.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when I think about this when I go to New York and I have to drive home, and I'm like, wait a minute, the traffic is worse than it was before COVID.
Sure.
I mean,
well, also you live in a culture that, and this is just my experience, you live in a culture that actually proliferates fear. Everything we're supposed to be afraid of is a form of control. Now, we don't need to get into machinations of it. Is it on purpose? Is it some fascist entity? Or is it just that we're all unconsciously are really comfortable with fear? But fear is the food of the culture. Oh my God, the terror's going to get you. Oh my God, COVID's going to get you. Oh my God, there's a new variant. Oh my God. It's like, okay, so where's the moment where we just go like, right? So the slowing down, the divorcing, that's where the sitting a couple of minutes a day, whether it's on a yoga mat, whether it's in a martial arts, whether it's just in your home, turn everything on.
Or the forest.
Yeah, but some people who live in New York City, and you know, they might not have the forest. Yes, I'm a big fan of nature. That's why I live in nature. But it's regardless. The nature is in here, because I also go on these hikes, and then the people on their phones with the music on, and they're like looking at the phone. I see this now all the time. I'm just like, oh my God, like it's like a bad movie where they're literally bumping into you in nature, looking at their phone.
Yeah,
you're like, you know, it's like it's the mind is taking the body for a walk. It's like the wildest thing. It's like you take a dog for a walk. So,
but I guess it's better than nothing.
Well, I'm not judging it. I'm just observing. So one of the things also with awakening, this is really important. We just said, it's not about judgment. It's about observation, right? Yeah, judging is like fucking asshole. Observation is like, oh, I look at it like, where am I doing that? Is there a part of it? That's observation is important. Sometimes on a spiritual path, people are like, well, it's not about judgment. You're judging. It's like, no, dude, you got to observe. Observation, it's all you. That's an aspect of yourself. The person doing that is me. It's not something outside of me. It's like, if that person is doing that, some part of me is playing in that game, right? So this is also discernment versus judgment. This is about discernment. So I take it back into me, like, where do I do that? We all do that, right? Running and take the phone. I want to go take a shit and gotta take the phone. It's just like, dude, just take a fucking shit. Like, just put the phone down for 2 seconds and just have that experience, right? I don't know one's had that experience. I just only me, but yeah.
Oh God, I think we have to blip them one out, Abdi.
Go right ahead.
So Louise, just so we can like bring
absolutely not. I think that should stay.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
So Louise, like, I know that we sort of we're like gone through almost the whole episode already. Like, but was it tell me if you had something that you were like, okay, I'm gonna start with this. Like, is there something that you want to sort of like bring us together with the questions that we had, or is we're just continuing? Because I just thought about maybe you had some.
No, but I think it's difficult because you know, I don't know what you guys talked about before, so it's really, you know,
I don't know.
And as you said, Abdi, I'm kind of observing you too, and I try to, you know, just arrive here in
space
from where I just were, and
sorry to stress you out too.
Do you have any
No,
do you have any
definitely.
questions that maybe we haven't gone over? Is there any things you want to bring in, and we'll tell you if it's something we haven't?
If there's, but I was so, you know, I had to check out your website yesterday, so I checked out you, and I heard so much about you through Pernilla. So I was really, you know, excited to hear about your journey, and I think, as you just said, it's so wonderful that we can be joined like this and speak the same language, that the words are just resonating, and, you know, it brings up, you know, different sensations in my body, and you know, different thoughts in my mind, and covering, you know, the thing of running and you know, the flight or fight really, I get something that comes up in my mind, and what at least for me, it's really important to tap into my conscious attitude of how I'm meeting myself and the present moment, because I'm in a huge challenge about a divorce in my life, and I think that I go very much up and down, and when I'm in that free space of behind everything, I can't be in a better space. But as soon as I get triggered by something, it's really hard to not get trapped into that false self. I really had to stop myself several times during the day, say, what attitude do I want to meet this with? It's a lot of awareness with that attitude of how to proceed from moment to moment,
The betrayal that comes up in divorce, I've been through it. It's fucking brutal. And, part of it is also when you get on a spiritual path, a lot of things fall away, right? Like it's a common thing where people get divorced or go through that breakup. I love what you said. One of the experiences, and I know you're kind of saying that, is when you do the spiritual work, it's not that the pain of a betrayal doesn't come up, or the pain of, I've known this person that long, how are they acting like this, or we have these children together, how can he be so crazy? It's just that one processes it quicker because one really meets it head on. The heartbreak is real, the betrayal is real, the grief is real, the rage is real. And then you go like, oh, I'm not that person anymore. And back in the day, I used to treat people who would talk about a divorce from 40 years past. It used to break my heart for them. They're living in it. You won't have that experience. You will feel the pain more intently in the moment than maybe that person did. But when it leaves, it leaves. And there's a part to make room for humanity. But the spiritual work is real in that actually makes you process those things quicker. And it's brutal. My heart goes out to you. I've been through it. It's very brutal. And at the end of the day, it's love over fear, right? The awakening process is really the invitation of love over fear. And all those feelings, rage, anger, hatred, they're real. You got to process them. But it's really fear. And we choose love. And we're not choosing love, oh, I love this person. It's not a personal love. It's interpersonal, uber personal, which is a love. And it's like, well, you have these amazing kids and they came through because they chose these two parents to have this experience. It doesn't mean now these parents have to stay together. And that's really on a soul line. They've signed a dotted line to have these experiences. I'm seeing a lot of separations and breakups these last couple of years. Part of it is because people are waking up at different times. Now, that sounds so obvious. Sure, that's true. But it really is also a spiritual thing where one person is going like, hey, I really want to be here. A person's like, I don't want to be here.
Oh.
We respect that. I just don't want to be here. I want to be here. Whatever. I don't mean up or down, but it is sort of an up or down in terms of frequency. And it's painful. And yet, congratulations, have the courage to do it. Because I also have treated a lot of people who are in miserable marriages 20 years later.
And they stay.
They destroy the kids, they destroy themselves, and there's that anger and there's a death in them. So my heart goes out to you, and also congratulations for having the courage. And talk to your soon-to-be ex on a soul level. I want this to be done peacefully. I do this with people all the time. Having gone through what you've gone through, Lise, it's just really on a soul level. Like, God, we came together at one point because there was love. I want to do my best to let this go of love, let this go with love. And the other person, more of the time, is like, fuck you, I don't want to let this go in love. I want to trash you because how can you not be what I want you to be? And how dare you change your mind? And then you make room for that and you talk on a soul level. But I guarantee you, with the work that you're doing, you'll let this go way faster. And the pain is real. It's brutal. I mean, man, it's brutal. The stuff that people pull through these things, you're like, man, we shared a decade, 2 decades, whatever together. How the hell you can be such a fucking freak all of a sudden? Yeah, that's your childhood wounding and your childhood wounding. But if someone doesn't want to carry their emotional weight in a relationship, as painful as that separation is, man, the freedom on the other side of it, anything is worth it. Leave an arm and a leg, it's still worth it. I got the t-shirt. It's not pleasant.
No, but I think it's so interesting you said, because the frequencies are different, and and I told my husband, well, soon my ex-husband, but that when we met, we were dancing the same dance. Of course,
that's so nice.
Life has changed, and we're not dancing the same dance, and he doesn't want to dance with me up here, and I don't want to dance down here with him. It's easier for me to bring down my awareness to his state, but it's killing me.
It will literally kill you.
Yeah, because I'm not true to myself.
Yeah, and that's real. That's not like an energetic thing. Maybe the old you could have done that for a while. Part of with the energy available now, you will literally physically get sick. The soul does not tolerate these things anymore. No. It never did. But I mean, the personality and the soul, like, physically you will actually get ill, to the point of not to punish you, just to be like, we get in these relationships. I mean, relationship is the most arduous spiritual path for awakening, really. Most people get into this guy's hot, this guy's this, he's interesting, she's interesting. It's not that. Is to get to the next level. But either you do this together, but when you don't, it's actually destructive to both people. So just a given, just to say this, because so many people are going through this, if you lowered your frequency to be with them, it wouldn't just injure you. It would injure him, because it would allow his false self that doesn't want to shift to stay there, but it would also destroy your children, because they would watch their mom, and the lesson they get, and this stuff's all real. I can tell you as a therapist, is like, oh, in order to be in a relationship, you got to really betray yourself.
Not be true to yourself.
Not be true to yourself. And that's so, it's very courageous. What you're doing is very painful. And, people's worst attributes come out at these times, because they're coming from a lack mentality. Because really the highest level awakening, which is very rare to have, is like, oh my God, if this person doesn't want to be with me, even I'm angry, I'm pissed, and I'm this, it's going to be good for me too, because it's not good for me. They don't want to be with me. But we don't go there as humans, because this goes back to the fear over love. There's nothing here is lack. I got to hold on to this person, and if I can't have them, I'm going to punish the hell out of them to teach him a lesson. I got that t-shirt. It's not pleasant.
How many t-shirts do you have, Abdi?
Many t-shirts. I'm a master teacher. I'm just saying that I've been through a divorce. It's really horrendous, right? You love this person on one level. On one level, you got to protect yourself, because now so this is the other thing about the spirituality. I learned this the hard way. I really opened up at a young age, and boy, I had to learn to start shutting down, because you can't be that open. It's just reality. You want to be open on a higher level, but in personality, like, people take all your shit, like your heart, your body, your energy, your money. That's a common thing. So it's also learning that boundary part. So this became like spiritual counseling 101 with relationships. But I think
I love it. Thank you so much.
No, I'm not.
So
it's the most important thing, because really most of us are in relationship, and most of us are having issues in our relationships right now, because people are changing really quickly. Like the stuff that I'm
or
seeing,
they're not, or they're not.
So, but the thing is, something that took maybe me, all three of us, 10 years, 15 years, I'm seeing people doing like 3 months. Can you imagine how much it's like throwing a grenade into a relationship? One person has these awakening. They feel totally stranger with this person. The other person's scared. I'm sure you know this, like they're scared, like, oh my God, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you being so crazy? Like, I'm not being crazy, I'm being me. So this is actually really important, what we're talking about, because that is a part of what's happening, and these awakenings are happening. They happen very rapidly now, and they're very at rapid times, but you have to trust spirit. Like, that's part of the plan. So then all we can do is, like, we're not here to be married. We're here to be awake and to be honest with self. That's what we're here to be. We do that. This is a really profound thing. You take care of yourself, not from an egoic place, from a heart place. Everyone gets taken care of around you. You don't want to go to that party, even though everyone wants to be there for you. Everyone will be taken care of, even though you have to disappoint other people. In your relationship, in your friendship, in your marriage. That is such a truth. And we're getting these truths. All we got to do is just act on it. We can't figure out, but 10 years from now, he'll be better because he'll be with another woman. You don't worry about that. This is what I'm given right now. In this moment, I can just be like, this is who I am. You get your ass kicked for it, because no one wants to hear that. Don't worry about that. And then you deal with the emotions that come up.
I love this. I'm like, this is like, we'll Venmo you after this. But wait, I just want to say one quick thing, because I have to drive my kids to school.
Yes.
Is there, like, so if we can just spend a little time saying that, Abdi, will you come back?
I would love to. This is lots of fun.
Yeah, because I feel like we just scratched like the very, very surface of what we can talk about.
And it's important stuff, right? The awakening.
Yeah, it's very important.
People don't talk enough about the relationship. And I can tell you as a therapist, the relationship, I think, is huge, because most of us are in some relationship. It really blows things up. So we can just even that part of it. I'd love to come back. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're the best, Abdi.
You're the best. You're the best.
You're my brother.
I love it.
Crazy mother.
Is this already done now? Are we stopping now?
She has to drive.
Yeah, because it's 7 already.
Okay, my God.
Sorry.
Okay.
So
we're gonna do it again, Louise.
Yeah,
we will.
Very soon. Okay.
Hey då.
Hej då. Tusen tack. Bye.
Hej då.
Hej då.
Hey, bye.
Take care. Bye. Have a good day, guys.
Bye.
See you.